and then we have a big meal, and we drink some beer, and
Sweet.
It's just,
You're giving beer to the kids?
Why not?
Yeah. Well,
They give wine to them at church.
Yeah,
I only got
absolutely.
grape juice when I went to church.
Well, that's because you went to the wrong church.
Free Talk Live.
Let's go to Mac. He's in Indianapolis listening to WIBC FM. Hey, Mac.
How are you?
Hey, what's on your mind?
I consider myself a practicing Odinist, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the tenets of that spirituality that I think you're missing.
Excellent,
Okay.
because Mark is a huge critic, as you heard earlier.
I'm a critic
so
of pretty much any religion. Go ahead.
That's funny because you're a minister.
Well, the thing is, Odinism isn't a religion in that typical sense. An Odinist doesn't worship Thor. An Odin looks at Thor as a Christian would look at a saint. An Odinist would look to Thor, Odin, Freya, Loki, Heimdall, whatever god or deity would serve him to give him strength and to redefine his connection with the world. So it's not as based in mythology, a snake wrapped around the world. Christians are more based in mythology with the resurrection and the Immaculate Conception and the burning bush than any Odinist is.
So what do you guys think about this this serpent that's wrapped around the world? What is that?
Sounds symbolic to me.
It's a mythology. It's about Thor defeated this serpent when Ragnarok happened. It's a big myth.
Ragnarok's over?
Right, hang on. Whoa. Ragnarok, I don't know what that is. I haven't read the comics, okay? I don't know anything about this.
It isn't the comics.
Hang on. I haven't seen the movies. I haven't read the comics. I certainly haven't read anything else about Thor. So hold on, Mac. If you can hang on, I'm going to bring you back here, okay? So stand by. More with Mac. He says he's an Odinist. This is Free Talk Live. We're talking about Odinism, which I know pretty much nothing about. I think a long time ago we had a couple listeners who practiced Asatru, which is related, maybe? I don't know. I'm pretty ignorant on this topic. Luckily, we've got a guy who says he's into this on the line with us here, and he hung through the break. It's Ian and Mark in the studio with you. What brought all this up is a news story about a guy in the military, the Marines, I guess, specifically, who's been granted...
No?
Sorry.
I don't know that this guy's in the
I apologize.
Army, yeah.
It was the other caller who brought up Marines.
Yep.
Anyway, guy in the Army who is now going to be allowed to have a beard because he is an Odinist, because he believes in that religion, and that requires one to have a beard, even though that could put him in some jeopardy of dying from, gas inhalation or being seriously harmed by that. But I guess he's willing to take the risk, and I guess the military has to say okay in this particular case. So
I suppose anybody with a beard right now is taking the risk that they could be gassed.
It looked, it also led to this conversation just sort of generally about Odinism, and Mark, you and I tend to be pretty ignorant on this subject, although you know more about some of its trappings than I do.
I've talked to a few people.
Yeah, you mentioned there's a serpent that they believe that allegedly wraps around the earth. And we have Mac back on the line with us here listening to WIBC. And Mac, I think, Mark, you just asked him about that serpent. Is this, something that the Odinists actually believe exists, or is it more of like a mythological tale that, doesn't... Tell me more about it.
Oh, a lot of those things come from the original Nordic sagas. They were stories and fables that carried spiritual messages. Okay, which if we're honest with ourselves, that's what the Bible is.
Yeah, sure.
It's not meant to be taken literally. Okay, and neither are the Nordic sagas, and they existed long before Stan Lee ever made them into a cartoon.
That was Jack Kirby.
Okay. Well, whoever started it, the sagas have predate Christianity. Okay, and I don't think anybody that calls himself an Odinist or a practitioner of the Nordic old ways is required to wear a beard. I don't think that's really a thing.
Is it encouraged?
But if he does,
do you have a beard?
I have a continually evolving beard. Yes, I do, but it's not based on my spirituality. I think if that soldier, if he draws strength from that, and he draws himself to the warrior creed that is very, very well represented in the Odinist philosophies, why would you want to stop him from doing that?
Why would I want to stop him? I don't know. I only want him to do whatever his sergeant wants him to do. I don't really care.
But understand,
you do care. You brought up the story.
A religion.
What's that?
This isn't a religion. It is a spiritual underpinning that people use to draw strength for their life.
Okay.
I don't think anybody worships Thor the way you said.
I like that. Spiritual underpinning draws strength from their life. Can you describe this strength drawing? Why does it happen?
Well, on both solstices and equinox, my wife and my family, we will light candles to all of the four winds, the four directions, and we will reaffirm our connection with the earth and the cycle of life that we're all part of. And we will use Nordic deities, particular seasons that are related to the particular seasons to foster that feeling of goodwill and carry it to for the next 3 months until we light the candles again. It's just simple.
4 times a year is a religious, ritual that I could get behind. That's pretty simple. It's not like every day, 5 times a day. It's just 4 times a year. That's all you got to do?
Yeah, and then we have a big meal, and we drink some beer, and
sweet.
It's just,
You're giving beer to the kids?
Why not?
Yeah, well,
they give wine to them at church.
Yeah,
I only got grape juice when I went to church.
Well, that's because you went to the wrong church. If they really believed in the Bible, they would have given you wine.
Yeah, in closing up here, just don't think of it as a big, serious religion that has serious tenets that are laid out that everybody understands. Because you can have one person calls himself an Odinist, and the next person they have a totally different commitment level and a totally different necessity for it in their life.
Now, my understanding is that some of the practitioners of Odinism or Asatru, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, are, let's say, fond of their own ethnicity. Have you found any of this?
Yeah. Well, it's based in very Teutonic lands. Okay.
Yep.
So people have subverted all sorts of philosophies to their own point of view, and unfortunately, that has happened with Odinism too.
Now, is this the? I'm just looking at, because again, I know nothing at all. Looking at the Wikipedia article here on Odinism. It is called heathenry. Is this the same thing, or is it Germanic paganism?
I think a better word than heathen would probably be pagan.
Paganism. Okay. Well, they consider.
Can you tell me the difference between these two things?
Well, in my point of view, to use the word heathen is to say that you have accepted the existence of a Christian God, but you're denying his power in your life.
All right.
A pagan wouldn't even accept the existence of a Christian God.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
A heathen is just not following the rules. A pagan doesn't recognize the rules.
How'd you get into this?
Good question.
What made you decide to, I don't know, get into this?
Just my heritage. I'm Scotch-Irish, and there are no Irishmen that don't have Northern blood in them. You know, and it's just comfortable for me. You know, my parents were Roman Catholics, and that's always felt dark and scary and inaccessible. And this is of me.
This is more empowering. This is something that resonated with you when you heard about it. But how'd you find it? Like, what?
It feels good.
What is it? What led you to it?
Yeah, I'd be hard to say. I don't know. You know, I found a book. The Rights of Odin.
What was it? The Rights of Odin?
The Rights of Odin is the book, and the guy, that author's name escapes me at the moment, but it goes through all kinds of seasonal ceremonies, and these are all just family get-togethers and potlucks with candles. Is all this is.
Interesting.
So anybody that backs this up with hate or violence, they're doing it wrong. You know.
So why the Irish? Is it just because we don't know very much about Irish gods that we've got a lot of documentation on the Norse gods? We don't have a lot on the Irish gods. Is it that reason?
Well, and there aren't. The Norse gods were held sway over all of Eastern Europe through lots of Celtic people, not just in the Scandinavian countries. And certainly the Vikings and the Scandinavians were very nomadic and aggressive. And, there's lots of Nordic blood there in Ireland on the English Isles.
Let's not forget that Charlemagne stirred them up. They really didn't do anything before Charlemagne came along and sort of wiped them out because they wouldn't convert to Christianity. And then their northern brethren came down and so you got a problem with us? And that's kind of what started the Vikings in the first place.
Yeah, and a lot of the your tenets of Christianity have been lifted directly from the old ways.
Yeah, I think that modern ones, there was, Clovis and these sorts of people, their conversion to Christianity required a certain amount of taking the warlike spirit that the North people had and incorporating it into Christianity. Prior to that, you really didn't see as much of it. It wasn't until about 1000 AD, that the Christianity would even accept anybody being more or less a soldier and being a believer at the same time.
Sure. And you could look at Christmas itself, Christmas Day. There's no actual record of what time of year Jesus Christ was allegedly born, but there were pagan celebrations at that time of year.
Yeah.
Pagans would notice the solstice, the change in the season, around the 23rd, right around solstice when it happens, and they would celebrate with decorating trees, exchanging gifts, and feasting. And so a great way to usurp that religion and to get people converted to Christianity is to go ahead and pick up some of their traditions.
That's right. Well. Yeah, we've talked about that before, how the Christians just basically straight up lifted a lot of their stuff right off of the pagans. Interesting call. I thank you for sharing tonight. Very informative. And Mac, I appreciate your call and your time. So there you go, Mark. You were asking. You thought nobody would believe in.
He said it wasn't really a religion or belief system or anything like that. And I'm fine with that.
That it's a spiritual practice from which he derives strength.
Fine.
That sounds religious to me.
Whatever floats your boat.
Free Talk Live. Listen live 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern or grab the podcast. It's all at freetalklive.com.